you just want to, you're going to publish it? Or, okay. State have any input on the theory? I'm taking judicial notice. That just means it's admissible.
Right.
So if the defense wants to read it, I don't think courts should get involved.
Normally, my experience has always been the judge reads the stipulations to the jury.
Yeah, but I don't have a stipulation. I've got a statute.
Well,
I don't have an objection either way.
Well, I mean, one thing is just give them all copies of it, just admit it, and argue whatever you want. But if are you going to introduce a copy as an exhibit?
I'll read it.
Well, I just don't.
I'll read it.
No. Do you want to introduce a copy so they'll actually physically have it?
I would rather they not have a copy, Judge. I mean, I don't have a problem with it being read. It's not a piece of evidence that I think needs to go back to them. It's just something they need to understand about Mr. Purifoy's testimony.
Well, and I haven't read the statute today to remember if it's got any extraneous points, but if it can be read, it certainly could be given to them. Do you have a copy?
Judge, I don't believe that we would be able to give it to the jury to take back. I think the only thing jurors are allowed to take back to the jury room would be their notes and the evidence. And I think anything else is verboten from going back to the jury room.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I've never, that's my understanding of what the rules are for a jury.
Well, I mean, this is different. This isn't the law about what they do. It's the law about a secondary issue, which the defense is going to assert provides a motivation regarding a witness. But I'll be glad to read it if that's okay with the parties. If anyone has a copy, I can look it up if you don't. Just read this statute to the jury.
Sure.
Okay, ready for the jury?
Yes, sir.
All right, bring them in, please. All right, jury's back. Please be seated. All right, members of the jury, I've been asked to take judicial notice of some certain information. What that means is just the court recognizes the existence of a certain law or other evidence. In this case, it's statute 921.186, and this is a matter that was touched on with the prior witness. It's entitled Substantial Assistance. Notwithstanding any other law, the state attorney may move the sentencing court to reduce or suspend the sentence of any person who is convicted of violating any felony offense and who provides substantial assistance in the identification, arrest, or conviction of any of that person's accomplices, accessories, co-conspirators, or principals, or of any other person engaged in criminal activity that would constitute a felony. The arresting agency shall be given an opportunity to be heard in aggravation or mitigation in reference to any such motion. Upon good cause shown, the motion may be filed and heard in camera, which means in closed hearing. The judge hearing the motion may reduce or suspend the sentence if the judge finds that the defendant rendered such substantial assistance. All right, Ms. Jensen.
The state recalls Matt Infinger.
Good morning, sir. Have a seat. You're still under oath.
Morning.
Morning.
I forgot to ask you a question yesterday. You spent some time with Mr. Hartung in the interviews that the jury watched yesterday, correct?
Yes,
And how tall are you?
6'4".
Was Mr. Hartung How tall was he compared to you?
A little bit taller, not much.
Now, you also testified, I think, on Mr. Griffith's cross-exam that the sheriff's office missed a safe in Voncile's closet, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Now, did you interview people from a locksmith company about that safe?
I did.
And when did you actually interview them?
December of 2016.
Okay. And when was Marlon Purifoy interviewed?
May and June of 2016.
When Marlon Purifoy was interviewed in 2016, did he talk about the safe in the mom's closet?
Yes, he did.
Did you know about that safe until Marlon told you?
No, I did not.
And until you interviewed Marlon Purifoy, did you know anything about safe combinations in a purse?
No.
Did you attend the autopsy of Richard, John, and Voncile Smith?
Yes.
And so were you familiar with the injury to Voncile's pinky?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Is any kind of torture mentioned in any of the reports in this case?
No.
Did the medical examiner's report give any indication of how that injury even occurred?
It mentioned a defensive wound.
Okay. Now, when you interviewed Marlon Purifoy in May or June of 2016, did he talk about the why the clothes were put on the bodies?
Yes, he said Hartung had told him that he put the clothes on top of the bodies to throw off the body temperature and time of death.
Okay. And other than Mr. Purifoy, when was the first time that body temperatures or time of death were even mentioned in this case?
It was during Dr. Minyard's deposition in December of 2016.
Was any blood found in Mr. Hartung's car?
No.
Was that mentioned anywhere in any reports?
No.
When you were at the Smith residence in 2015, did you walk around the overall perimeter of the property?
Yes, I did.
And was there any kind of gate on the back side of the property?
Yes, there was a chain link gate next to the woods in the backyard.
Okay. And did you notice if it was locked or unlocked?
It was unlocked. There was a padlock through the hinge on the gate, but it was not locked.
This show you would have been previously marked as State's Exhibits 411 and 412.
Do you recognize those?
Yes.
Were those taken by crime scene in July of 2015?
Yes, they were.
And are they fair and accurate visuals of the gate that you just described?
Yes.
Judge, at this time I'd move States 411 and 412 in evidence.
No objection. So did it.
And permission to publish.
Nay.
For the record, this is States Exhibit 411, and just describe for the jurors what this shows.
The gate right there on the back fence of the property.
Like by the wheelbarrow, kind of?
Correct.
Okay. And States Exhibit 412.
And that's the lock in the hinge of the gate that you just showed me.
Okay. Now, was the fact that that gate was not locked mentioned in any reports in this case?
No.
Excuse me. Was the name of Mr. Hartung's dog mentioned in any reports in this case?
No.
Thank you, sir. Those are all my questions.
Agent Infinger. You said you missed a safe in Miss Smith's closet?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you didn't learn about it till May or June of 2016?
Yes.
Do you know, had it been located prior to that when the house was cleaned?
Not to my knowledge, no. That was the first I'd heard of it.
Okay. Well, do you know the house was cleaned by a cleaning crew prior to it being sold through the probate administration?
I didn't know that.
Okay? And when the house was cleaned and the safe was found, did anybody tell you that?
No,
But you weren't even aware the house was cleaned and put up for sale, were you?
no.
Okay. When you are working on a case, do you prepare reports about what has happened and what's transpired?
Yes,
And are they provided to the state attorney's office?
yes,
And are they then provided to defense counsel?
yes.
Do you know what information that I may have shared with Mr. Hartung?
No,
Do you know what theories of the case I may have shared with Mr. Hartung?
no,
So you don't know what we may have talked about as what I've recognized to be important or unimportant as far as the case is concerned?
no.
And do you have any idea what correspondence he may have received from his probate attorney?
No,
And do you know whether any information about the subjects that Ms. Jensen just asked you about were provided to Mr. Hartung by either me or his probate attorney?
no.
Was there a toolbox found in the house?
There may have been. I don't recall. It doesn't stick out to me.
Okay. Did you ever search Richard Smith's mini warehouse unit at Cube 3?
I went and looked in it. I did not go through it.
And when was that?
August of 2015 at some point in time. I don't remember the exact date.
Did you take photographs of it?
No, I obtained the video footage from the warehouse there to see if anybody went in that after the crime had occurred, and nobody did.
How about before the crime occurred?
No,
No one went in, or you didn't get the footage?
we did not get that video footage.
So what you determined was that Mr. Hartung did not go to the Cube 3 storage unit after the death of his family?
Correct.
I don't have anything further of the witness at this time.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, sir. You can step down. State, call your next witness, please.
Jessica Bohon.
Good morning. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you state your name and spell your last name for us?
Jessica Bohon, B-O-H-O-N,
And what's your date of birth?
Get real close to the microphone. That's great.
June 2nd, 1975.
And back in 2015, where were you employed?
The law firm of J. Mark Fisher,
And what kind of work did you do?
probate and estate work.
In August, September of 2015, were you involved in the probate case of the Smith family?
I was,
And did your firm represent Mr. Hartung?
yes.
I need you to speak up, okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you describe to the jury just generally what is probate?
It is establishing the validity of a will through the court. It is a court process for establishing the validity of a will, distributing of assets.
And whose or what estate was at issue with your firm?
I'm sorry?
What estate was at issue?
The Smith estate, it was not, they didn't have an estate, they had wills, but the
And
Smiths.
is that the mother and the two brothers?
Yes,
Did you ever go out to 4605 Deerfield Drive?
I did.
How many times?
Several. It's been quite some time now, but several times.
And were you involved in the cleaning of the house?
I did not personally clean it. I was involved with the interviewing or hiring of the cleaning team that was out there, and I would oversee that.
And did you hire a cleaning team?
The firm did, yes.
And as part of your duties there, did y'all have to do an inventory of the house?
I don't recall an inventory of the items in the house. When we were out there, I know that valuables were taken away and put off-site somewhere.
By your firm?
Yes,
Did there come a time where a safe was found in the house?
yes.
And was this after law enforcement had left?
It was. Yeah, we were not allowed out there until after that time.
Approximately when was it that y'all were out there doing the cleaning?
September
Of 2015?
2015, yeah.
And where was that safe found?
In the floor, cemented in the floor, in the closet of Voncile Smith.
And did you personally see that safe?
I did.
Did you photograph it?
I did, yes.
Right, and what'd you use to photograph it?
My cell phone. I used my cell phone, and then I sent that photo to Bentley Fisher, the attorney at the Fisher firm that I work for.
All right, ma'am, I'm going to show you states 377 if you may.
Me.
You recognize 377?
I do.
What is that?
This is a photograph of the safe that I found, or I personally didn't find it, that was found in the closet.
And is that an accurate picture of how you found it?
Yes,
I'd like to move in 377.
So admitted.
Did you or your firm try to get a locksmith to come open it?
yes, I called around that day to try to get someone out there.
And do you personally know if there was any contents in the safe?
I don't know. I
Why
was
not?
not there at that time. I was not there at that time. I had already left.
Left where?
Left the firm
Okay.
and went somewhere else for employment.
Between July 31st of 2015 and September, when y'all were in there doing the cleaning, do you have any idea of who might have come and left from that residence?
I would only know the folks that were out there on my watch. So yes, I would know who that is.
Would you know if anyone else had access to that home?
I would not know that.
How long did it take for y'all to clean the house or do the inventory?
We were out there a solid week.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Those are my questions. Judge, I would like to publish 377.
Me.
Ms. Bohon, is that your foot?
That's it.
Judge, the defense has photos 23, 24, and 25, which we'd like to introduce into evidence. I've spoken with the state, they had no objection.
So admitted.
Can I publish these before I question Ms. Butler?
You may.
I guess, but may I, not can I?
If you could pass them down as you each one.
Yeah, first.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been marked as defense 23, 24, and 25. Do these accurately represent Mrs. Smith's bedroom when you were at the house doing the inventory and cleaning?
They do.
And when you were there, the first time you went there, was the house had just been left as the law enforcement had found it, to the best of your knowledge?
It had, yes.
And were you there with Mr. Fisher?
I was.
And after you and Mr. Fisher were there, what was your job?
My job was to find a cleaning crew that would come in and essentially gut the house of all of its contents, including the carpeting.
Okay. And which cleaning crew was that? Do you recall?
I do not recall.
Was it a commercial cleaning crew?
It was, yes.
And were you there when they started cleaning out the house?
I was.
And were you there when the safe was found in the closet?
I was.
Prior to taking all of the furniture and the stuff, the clothing, etc., out of the room, could you get back into the closet?
Prior to that?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
Was there just too much stuff in the room?
It was full, yes. I mean, you could get to the doorway, but not really into the closet itself.
Was that because of all the stuff?
Yes.
While you were there, you indicated that a floor safe was found?
Correct.
Thank you. That's the floor safe, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm looking at where your shoe is. Was the carpet cut around there?
I was not back there when they pulled the carpet up, but that's how it was found. They pulled the carpet back.
They had to pull the carpet back from the carpet tacks?
They had to pull the carpet back.
If I might, right there, it looks like tacks, where you tack the carpet to the wall. Is that what you see there?
It is.
And along this edge here, is that where the carpet was cut?
Where my foot is
Yes, ma'am.
over, that I don't know.
Well, did the cleaning crew pull back that carpet to throw it out?
They did.
And is that when the safe was found?
Yes, it was.
And do you know what the contents of that safe were, or were you not there when it was open?
I do not. I was not there when it was open.
So you don't know what may have been in that safe?
No idea.
I guess Mr. Fisher would know that?
I would think so. That is who I would defer your question to, yes.
Well, you were working with the Fisher Law Firm. There were occasions when communications had to be made with Mr. Hartung, is that correct?
That's correct.
And would that be by mail?
By mail or by phone. I've spoken with him as well.
When he would have to call you from the jail, right?
This was before. I wasn't there long, but this was before he was,
Before he was arrested?
yes.
And after he was arrested, did you send mail to him? or were you gone by then?
I had left the firm by then.
So when did you leave the firm?
I believe it was October, early October of 2015.
To your knowledge, did Mr. Hartung ask to have anything from the house?
Yes.
What was that?
I think they were just family heirlooms or something. He was specific about a book or something of Indian heritage or something along those lines. For some reason, the book sticks out.
But family, what we call trinkets or heirlooms?
That's what I would call them.
Did he take anything else from the house?
He only took very few things, to my knowledge.
And you were there, or Mr. Fisher was there whenever he went there, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what he took, was it anything of any real value?
I wouldn't know the value of anything he took.
Other than personal?
Personal. I wouldn't know monetary value.
Okay. And the things of value were taken by putting somewhere else for Mr. Fisher?
Anything that was in that house when we went in to clean up that was of value was taken to an off-site storage area.
That was controlled by Mr. Fisher?
Correct.
I don't have anything further. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Ma'am, is this
Sure.
how you found the safe when you saw it?
When I was taken back there, yes.
Okay, so you didn't see it with the carpet down?
No.
Thank you.
All right, you can step down, ma'am.
Thank you.
Let's take call your next witness.
Wayne Wright.
Good morning. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning. Will you state your name, please?
Wayne Wright,
And where are you employed?
the state attorney's office.
What are your duties with the state attorney's office?
I'm an investigator assigned to the homicide major crimes section.
How long have you been doing that?
With the state, approximately 4.5 years now.
And where were you before the state attorney's office?
The Escambia County Sheriff's Office.
What did you do for the sheriff's office?
I started off in crime scene, spent approximately 4 years in crime scene. Then I moved to uniform patrol. Then I went to investigations, serving both as a property crime investigator and then as a major crimes investigator.
Okay. And tell the jury your crime scene training and experience.
Crime scene, I completed both the basic and advanced courses through the American Academy of Applied Sciences, American Institute of Applied Sciences. There was a 40-hour crime scene processing class the sheriff's office sponsored, and then there was ongoing training throughout my 4 years at the sheriff's office.
Okay. Back in July of 2015, were you involved in the death investigation on Deerfield Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you at the state attorney's office or the sheriff's office at that point?
The state attorney's office.
And what was your primary role?
I act as a liaison between the sheriff's office and the state attorney's office, and I just assist with pretty much anything that is deemed necessary.
Kind of like a jack of all trades?
Kind of.
Did you continue working on this case through trial?
Yes, ma'am.
And on July 31st of 2015, did you actually go to the scene when the bodies were found?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. And did you go back to the Deerfield Drive home as follow-up?
Yes.
And when you would go back out to the Deerfield Drive home, did you see Well, do you know who Mr. and Miss Chittenden are?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and when you would go back out there for follow-up, would you see them sometimes?
Yes, I'd see him on the front porch.
Now, did you take photos of the view between the Smith residence back porch and Mr. Chittenden's backyard?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
When was that?
I believe that was September 29th, 2015.
I'm going to show you what have been previously marked as States Exhibits 378 and 379.
Yes, ma'am,
Do you recognize those?
I do.
Did you take those on September 29th, 2015?
Yes, I did.
And are they fair and accurate visuals of the locations between the Smith family home and Mr. Chittenden's home?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time, I'd move States 378 and 379 into evidence.
We have no objection.
So admitted.
And this is States 378. Can you just describe for the jurors where you're standing and what the picture shows?
Yes, ma'am, this would be in the backyard of the Smith residence, if you don't mind me standing.
No, please.
You can see the gate here, it leads into their yard, and then this would be the Chittenden home, and this would be the Chittenden's backyard.
Okay. This is 379.
Again, the same location, I'm just standing back a little bit further in the Smith's yard, just underneath their back porch area.
Have you reviewed a document, in this case, that the state obtained from the U.S. Department of Commerce?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as States Exhibit 380. Have you had a chance to review that document?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Judge, at this time, I'd move in States 380. The state filed a notice of intent to rely on a certified record on May 20th, 2019.
No objection.
So admitted.
What is that document?
This shows the sunset times on the dates in question.
Okay. And what was the sunset time on July 28th, 2015?
It would be 7:46
Okay.
p.m.
What does that document show?
This shows 6:46 p.m.
Okay, and then does it provide for the fact that they don't take daylight savings into effect?
Yes, ma'am. On the third or fourth page, I guess, it shows that daylight savings time is not used for this document.
In May and June of 2016, did you participate in interviews with Marlon Purifoy?
Yes, ma'am.
And after those interviews, did you go in search of a Wiccan priest or high priest near 9 Mile Road?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And were you able to find anyone?
Yes.
Okay, what did you find?
I found a couple that identified themselves as a high priest and high priestess. They didn't live off 9 Mile Road, but they did hold periodic ceremonies at a church just north of 9 Mile Road.
Now, after Mr. Purifoy's second interview, did you have him move to a different area of the jail?
I did.
Okay, and what's the purpose of that?
It's standard procedure. Anytime that a witness's identity is disclosed, we have them moved.
Okay. Nothing to do with Mr. Hartung, right?
No, it's standard procedure.
Excuse me. Now, as part of your duties, do you often have to retrieve evidence from the sheriff's office and bring it to trial?
Yes.
And were you asked to bring sheriff's office number 22, a hammer from the sink, for trial today?
I was.
We have no objection, Your Honor.
Judge, at this time I move into evidence States Exhibit 381, which is a hammer from the kitchen near the sink.
So admitted.
So are you familiar with firearms?
Yes,
Okay, and are you a task force officer?
I am.
For who?
The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
And is there a particular section?
I'm assigned to the gun crime response team here locally.
Okay. Now, do you know if you can use a silencer with a 9mm firearm?
Yes.
Okay. And what is a silencer?
Really, the proper term would be a suppressor, because it doesn't really silence the gun, it just suppresses. But all it is any device that would reduce the velocity and speed with which gas leaves the barrel of a firearm. And by reducing the velocity and speed of that gas, it reduces the sound the firearm makes.
Reduces the sound?
And the muzzle flash, yes.
Now, let me take you back to your crime scene days.
Okay.
Are you familiar with GSR?
Yes.
Excuse me. What is GSR?
Gunshot residue.
Okay. And did you learn about that through your training and experience as a crime scene tech?
Yes.
Okay. And what knowledge and experience do you have?
Gunshot residue, it's a test that is performed. There's actually it's looking for 3 specific elements, antimony, barium, and lead, that may be on the hands of somebody that has come into contact with a firearm. The theory being that when a firearm is fired, the majority of gunshot powder, gunshot residue is expelled from the barrel of the gun, but a small amount is blown back from the breech end of the gun and may get on the shooter's hands.
Okay. And maybe clothing?
Clothing, yes.
Okay. And are you familiar with what kind of consistency GSR is?
It's roughly like a flour, like cooking flour type.
Okay. And based on your training and experience, what is the time frame best to test for GSR?
Per the standards that were in place at the time, FDLE would not accept any test that was taken more than 8 hours after the incident had occurred.
And you say at the time, are you talking about in July of 2015?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, that's how I was trained.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, a few questions. You said that you went and talked to a high priest and priestess. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did they know Mr. Hartung?
No,
Did they ride Harleys?
not to my knowledge.
Okay. You asked them specifically if they knew Mr. Hartung, right, or if they'd had contact with him?
Yes, sir, I did.
And the answer was no.
That's correct.
As far as firearms, first of all, you're not a firearms expert, are you?
No, sir.
But you do know a little bit about GSR simply through your investigative training.
Yes, sir.
Now, what GSR is the blowback from a firearm. It's
Yeah.
the gases that blow back, and they have one of the 3 elements in it.
Yes, sir.
And a combination of those elements indicate that it was gunpowder that was blew back on the person firing the gun.
Yes, sir.
And that blowback can either be on the person firing the gun or potentially someone next to that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And gunshot residue can be found on hands
Yes.
because if it's a revolver, you're holding the handle of the gun, correct?
Yes.
A revolver or a semi-automatic
Sure.
pistol. And as far as the blowback, if someone has on a long sleeve shirt, it can get on their shirt. Is that correct?
Theoretically, yes, sir.
And it can get on the chest area of their shirt.
Yes, sir.
And there's no definitive time on how long that'll stay on a shirt, is there?
Not to my knowledge.
And in fact, it can stay on a shirt for a lengthy period of time unless, say, it gets wet either in a rainstorm or you obviously wash the clothing.
Theoretically, yes, that's correct.
Now, as far as a silencer is concerned, silencers are able to be purchased in the state of Florida, is that correct?
With the, you'd have to make application through the ATF.
Yeah, I was going to get into that.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay. You're jumping ahead because you're reading my mind.
I'm sorry.
You can buy silencers in Florida.
With the appropriate documentation, yes.
And there are requirements in buying silencers.
Yes.
And you have to clear a background check, first of all.
Yes.
And you have to buy what I think is called a federal tax stamp.
Yes, sir.
And to obtain a federal tax stamp, you have to go through certain procedures with the United States government.
Correct.
And then the store where you intend to buy the silencer has to okay it.
Yes, I believe so, yep.
And then you get your silencer.
Correct.
There would be a record kept by the stores that sell these silencers because of getting the tax stamp. Is that correct?
I believe the ATF maintains a record of them, yes.
And as long as they've been selling silencers, you've had to have that tax stamp.
Yes.
At least since 1930s.
Yes.
Do you know if any tax stamp was ever issued to Mr. Hartung to buy a silencer?
I don't know.
Did you investigate that?
No, sir.
Do you know if anyone investigated that?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you know if any silencer was ever found at the crime scene or at Mr. Hartung's residence?
Not to my knowledge.
This may be a little bit outside your area of expertise, but when a cartridge is fired, there are generally, out of a revolver or a rifle, there are lands and grooves on the bullet that comes out, correct?
On the projectile, yes, sir.
And the bullet was too broad a word on the projectile. And those lands and grooves can tie that projectile to a specific type of gun and even to a specific gun.
Yes.
Okay. Do silencers affect the lands and grooves? And like I said, it may be more than...
Typically, no, not to my knowledge. They don't.
In this particular projectile that was recovered by, I think it was Crime Scene Tecmaceta, in this particular projectile, did it have any indication that a silencer was used?
I don't know, sir.
Okay. As far as the hammer is concerned, have you looked at that hammer that you brought over here?
Just this morning when we opened it.
What kind of hammer is it?
I don't know.
You don't know whether it's commonly purchased at Kmart's or anything like that?
No, sir, I don't know.
Okay. Do you know anything about the hammer other than you brought it over here from the Sheriff's Department?
That's pretty much the extent of my knowledge.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
If someone washes their hands, can that eliminate GSR particles?
Yes.
If they wash their clothes, can that eliminate GSR particles?
Yes.
And are records kept, and I'm talking about firearms, sorry to jump around, or silencers. Are records kept on purchases between individuals?
No.
So if you buy something on the street, is there going to be a record?
No.
If you buy something from a friend or someone you know, is that going to be on record?
No.
And are you familiar with some like makeshift type silencers?
Yes.
What can you use as a makeshift type silencer?
As I said earlier, it can be anything that reduces the speed and velocity of the gas coming out. So I've known of people using Coke bottles, air filters, fuel filters, anything like that. It can, let's say, just slow down that gas coming out of the gun.
Thank you.
May I redirect briefly on one point that you brought up?
Yes.
Because of the specific and dangerous nature of silencers, if I buy one and sell it to you, you have to get a tax stamp for it, right? And there's a record.
Yes, sir. You should have. You're supposed to have a tax stamp to buy a silencer. Yes.
It's not just like a gun where I could sell you a firearm if we both live in the same state. I would have to let the government know I sold the silencer and to whom I sold it, then you would have to get a tax stamp to show that you bought that with the same serial number that I sold.
Yes, sir. To legally own, you'd have to have a tax stamp.
And to your knowledge, was there anything found at the crime scene that would be a bottle, an air cleaner, or anything else in any of the trash that would show that it was used as a silencer?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
Thank you, sir.
Any further?
No, sir.
Or you can step down, sir. The council approach. All right, members of the jury, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break now. So we'll be in recess until 1:15. Hopefully your lunch will get here pretty quickly.